Hi guys, welcome back. It is now the beginning of week 6 in term 3 and we are looking at the editing quizzes week 2, lesson 6 for English writing skills. So I hope you guys survived last week, your first week of digital only lessons, and I hope that you understood and did well on your first editing quiz. And remember, the deadline is not until March 27th though, so you still have some time if you haven't done it yet, but this material will cover editing quiz week 2. So let's jump right in. We're going to go to Blackboard. So if you're not there, pause the video and go over to Blackboard, to our course page, class threads, and then the class that you are in. You will see your discussion at the top. Then you'll see your submission link for the summary. For the quizzes, remember you do that here in the left tab. Then you have the video recap for lessons 1 through 3, the video lesson 4, and then I will add, as soon as I am done uploading this video lesson 5 and 6 here. But you can also go to the content folders. So from week 4 onwards, we have the content folder for week 4, content folder for week 5, and then for week 6 now. So this is the week we are in. What you should do today or before you start for this week, is you should revise the chapters you previously read. That would be chapter 3 in the Little Brown Handbook, chapter 17, chapter 18, chapter 37 with a focus on G, and 40A. And then also you were asked to do a revision exercise on page 392 that's covering fragments, comma splices, fused sentences, and other sentence errors. So we will start in a few minutes looking at that exercise, and I will show you the sample answer from the answer key. But before you really get into this week's work, I wanted to give you the links to a prior knowledge quiz, so covering material that you learned last week. You have the link here, so if you just want to click that, it'll download or come up in another window. And this is the week 5 prior knowledge quiz, so the material from last week. What is a sentence fragment? How can you tell whether a sentence is a true sentence or a fragment? How can you fix a sentence fragment? What is a comma splice and how can you fix a comma splice? What is a fused sentence and how can you fix a fused sentence? Okay, so if you haven't done that yet when you're watching this video, go ahead and press pause and answer those questions. And then you can press play and then see the answer key, or you can simply do this yourself by looking at the links yourself on Blackboard. And you will see that I've given you an answer saying where you can find those answers in which chapters, because they directly correlate to questions that you will get on your editing quizzes. And also it will help you edit your summary and then later your argumentative essay. Okay, and then after this video is uploaded, you will also have a link here to the video lecture. And the chapters that you need for studying this week are chapter 14, chapter 33, and chapter 37. Less important but also useful is chapter 6. And then the link to this article, the top 20 errors in undergraduate writing, you will have questions from this as well. I'm just going to scroll through it. You guys should read this by yourselves at home. It covers topics that we have... Just realized I'm not putting myself in the video. It covers topics that we cover in our chapters from the Little Brown Handbook, but it's just a bit more condensed and easier for you to digest this way, which is why we have some questions specifically from this article to ensure that you also, on top of the assigned chapters in the Little Brown Handbook, you also read this article. So number 1 is wrong word, using the wrong word. Number 2, missing a comma after an introductory element. Number 3, incomplete or missing documentation. So that would be citations or sources. Number 4, vague pronoun reference. Number 5, spelling. Number 6, mechanical error with a quotation. Number 7, unnecessary comma. That happens often with Dutch writers. Number 8, unnecessary or missing capitalization. Number 9, that was number 8, yeah. Number 9, missing word. Number 10, faulty sentence structure. So just the structure of your sentence is grammatically incorrect or confusing or misleading in some way. Number 11, missing comma with a non-restrictive element. Number 12, unnecessary shift in verb tense. This is definitely a very common mistake. Number 13, missing comma in a compound sentence. Number 14, unnecessary or missing apostrophe. Number 15, fused or run-on sentence. This you've read a lot about and I've done exercises on. Very important that you understand how to correct and recognize these, as well as comma splice, number 16. Number 17, lack of pronoun, antecedent agreement. 18, poorly integrated quotations, so how to use your sources properly. And number 19, missing or unnecessary hyphen. And 20, of course, sentence fragments. So make sure you review that article, you study it, you take some Cornell method notes, and that you know that information not only from the Little Brown Handbook, but also how it's described and listed there in that article. So you are expected to also be very familiar with the information in that article. And then you have, of course, the study guide. I've given you guys a link before as well. So I'll just open that quick for you. So you had your chapters to focus on for editing quiz 1, and then now for edit. It's funny how the other one opened up and this one just went to the download folder. So for this week, editing quiz week 2, here we have chapter 14. You're going to focus specifically on the voice section, although you should have read the whole chapter as is part of this week's lesson. And then chapter 13 focuses on the capitalization, chapter 33, I misspoke. Focuses on the capitalization A through D specifically. And then we have chapter 37D and then 6E. So that is also there. I'm going to update my content folder to have chapter 6 in there as well. It is part of my lesson plan today. That was a mistake on my end, so I will edit that. And then the article, of course, as I've just mentioned. So make sure that you really study those chapters. Anything you do on top of that is great, but you want to also make sure that you really hit the necessary chapters in depth. Okay, so also necessary chapters for today also includes chapter 6. And we will look at that. That's about informal and formal English, or academic and colloquial English. Okay, I'm going to open, I'm going to show you quickly though on the module guide. So here we had the chapters, we had the editing quiz, prior knowledge quizzes, the video lecture, the Little Brown Handbook chapters, the article, the study guide, and then the module guide. Page 27 and 28. So 27 had the information, the homework for today. And then on page 28, we see what the focus is for this lesson and the homework for this lesson. So just wanted to point that out. And then last thing I want to mention before we get into the content is that I will do a live stream on Thursday, March 26th from 11:30 to 12:30, and that will be focused on English practicals and English writing skills. I do ask that maybe we can focus first on the practicals just to get those last few questions out of the way, and then we will go to the English writing skills. And also, I ask you to please come with specific questions. It is not another lesson. These videos are your lessons. The live stream is for me to answer questions that you have. So you're more than welcome to come to the live stream and just listen, but do realize that it is not another lesson. I am only answering questions rather than giving another lesson. I may go off and explain something based on a question I receive, but I don't have a formal lesson plan as I do for a lesson like today. And mostly just answering your questions. And so there's a link there to the YouTube channel. If you subscribe and then you click the bell, then you will get notifications of new videos. And also, I think reminders, if I send out a reminder for the live stream, you would get that as well. And the channel title is The International Yankee English. Okay, so let's get started. We are going to go to my e-reader, because I would like to show you first here. We had on page 392, this exercise was homework, revising clear sentences. So you should clarify meaning in the following paragraphs by revising sentence fragments, comma splices, fused sentences, problems with pronoun reference, awkward shifts, misplaced and dangling modifiers, and mixed and incomplete sentences. So some of those sections were not the focus of the editing quiz, but you should have done in your reading, so you should work on revising these. Most errors can be corrected in more than one way. So I will show you a sample answer in a moment, but that doesn't mean that your answers were incorrect, and you're more than welcome to comment your answers here on the video to get a response and feedback from me, or in the class threads as well in the discussion forum. So this was the text that you needed to revise. That was the last paragraph, the middle paragraph, and the top paragraph. Okay, and then the answer, the possible answers, we're going to pull up here in the answer key. So if you guys can see this, maybe I can zoom in better for you. Okay, so these are the possible answers, but they've underlined the areas that have mistakes, and that they've gone ahead and revised. It goes on to this page. So that's the last bit. I think I might have gone too quickly, so I will show you one more time. Here's the first paragraph revised, the second paragraph revised, scroll down, third paragraph revised, which continues on to this page, and that's that. So I hope you guys got something out of that exercise that's kind of combining the different things that you needed to learn for today, and it's doing it in a more practical application rather than just answering theoretical questions. And of course you can pass the editing quizzes mostly by just answering the theoretical questions correctly, but there are some short answer questions where you need to revise a sentence, for example. That is within the pool of questions. It isn't a guarantee that you have to do that because they are randomized. There are many, many more questions in the bank than what you end up getting in your quiz. So you may have different questions than your the two classmates that you spoke to about the quiz. That's to be expected. We don't want everybody doing the same quiz, but all of the questions are focused on these chapters. And it's completely randomized which questions you get from the pool of questions. Okay, so now we're going to go to the Little Brown Handbook, chapter 14, so we can talk about voice, academic voice in your writing. Now in the actual textbook, you will be going to page 319, and on our e-reader, we will go to page 323. It takes a minute to load always. All right. Okay, so that's the exercise I wanted to do. It was on page 323. That's mood above that. And voice starts here on the page 319 in the book, and it is 323. Okay, no, it's not the exercise. I apologize, it was the start. Okay, so voice. When we speak about voice, it's similar to your actual voice. How do you sound? Do you sound angry? Do you sound happy, sad? But it's more in the terms of the academic style you're writing in. And here it tells in grammar, when you look at the actual grammar side of voice, then you're talking about passive and active language. So is the language you're using, the verbs, are they being done actively, or is something being done to them passively? So we have two examples here. In the active voice, we have the subject and then the verb, where she, subject, wrote, verb, the book. Now, if we want to change that idea to the other voice, to the passive voice, then the subject is the one receiving the action. And the actual actor may be named in a prepositional phrase, or it could be omitted. You can take out the subject. And that is why so this book focuses on how the active voice is usually clearer. That goes a little bit against the grain with academic writing. You'll hear many teachers saying, or textbooks saying, yes, passive is preferred or better or more academic. And now the reason for that, why so many teachers and books say that, is that you can take the subject out. In academic writing, you're supposed to be neutral. It's supposed to be about the content that you're writing about and not so much about the person. So that's why often we lean towards passive writing in academic English. But sometimes there just isn't a good, clear way to use passive, and it doesn't make sense to do so because we don't generally use passive voice in our spoken colloquial English. So there's a time and a place for both voices. I think that most academic sources will lean too much towards passive, whereas this book leans a little too much proactive, in my opinion, and I think you have to really look yourself at what makes the most sense and make sure that you're not using first person no matter what in your academic writing, unless it was assigned and given in your assignment that you should do so. But generally you are not using first person. So if you're using active voice but not first person, that's okay. You can do that. So we have here the passive voice example. The book was written by her. So the fact that she wrote the book, her, that she's the author, is less important. And that's why you could even take out the by her. You can just cross that out. The book was written. She wrote the book. So you see how the emphasis is less, it was more on the action and what was done versus the person doing it. So that's the main difference between active and passive. And here we see that the passive verb always consists of the some form of to be plus the past participle of the main verb. So rents are controlled. Other helping verbs can also be used with be, being, and been. So we have rents will be controlled, rents are being controlled, or rents have been controlled. Only a transitive verb, one that takes an object, may be used in passive voice. So if you're confused or want to look a little bit further at that, you can look at page 265. Okay. So here we have a nice little chart that covers it for you quite nicely. We see that we have always here the subject and the verb and the object of some kind. So in the first one we have the city controls rents. Okay. Here the subject is doing the action. But in the passive voice, we have something happening to the subject. It is acting upon this. The subject is being acted upon. So we have rents are controlled by the city. Or as we said in the previous example, simply rents are controlled. Because remember, the subject, the city, isn't really that important when we're using passive voice. That's not our emphasis. We aren't trying to stress the city. We're trying to stress the control of the rents versus the city doing that. So here, again, as I mentioned, this book has a bit of a preference for active voice, and it says generally prefer the active voice. And you see an example of a weak passive structure versus strong active structure. I agree with that for the most part and to some extent, but there are times where you want to be careful about using the active voice too much so it doesn't sound too colloquial, or that you end up putting too much focus on the subject when the content should be the focus. So really doing enough exercises. I'm going to go ahead and post a couple of extra exercises for passive and active from my own grammar exercise book that I wrote last year that was published by Fundala. Because I think that it's important to understand active and passive, and it's difficult to understand passive and active and passive. Okay, so make sure to read through this on your own. I'm not going to go through each section with you guys right now. That would be a bit redundant since that is your homework. But we are going to look at exercise 14.11, which is unfortunately on two different pages. Page 321 and 322 in your textbook. So I will just leave this here. So here you should convert the following sentences from either active to passive or passive to active, depending on which voice it's written in. So go ahead and pause the video if you need, or go ahead and just do this in your textbook. And also make note that there are additional exercises in your book on page 284 and on page 395, and then I will just post as additional resource information some extra exercises from my own grammar exercise book for you too. So pause that. Okay guys, did you do the exercise? Then you will be happy to see the example answers. I'm going to pull those up. I should probably zoom in for you. 1411. Okay, so converting between active and passive voices. You can pause this and take a look at the answers that are here. If you don't understand why these are the answers or why you got something different, then comment below in the comments below the video, or go ahead and start a thread in the discussion forum as well. That's also a possibility. Okay, good. I'm going to minimize this and go back to our e-reader, because I would like to take us to Capitalization, chapter 33. We're going to start on page 497 of your textbook. Take a minute for this to come up. Okay, 33D. Capitalize proper nouns, proper adjectives, and words used as essential parts of proper nouns. So this is something that I'm not going to go through each section. I'm going to just scroll through it so that you can have a reminder in case you want to watch this just a little bit more quickly after you've actually done the proper reading and studying. So I will show this. There's some specific persons, things, places, days of the week, holidays, historical events, specific names of governments, offices or departments, academic institutions, political parties, sports teams, races, nationalities, languages, religions, or excuse me, or religious terms as well. And then we see in point 2 some common nouns that are used in a specific sense. So if you just say the street, not capitalized. If you say Main Street and you give it a specific name, it's capitalized. As well as trade names, so companies, often people call tissues Kleenex, or if you're German, Tempo. I can't remember what they call them here, but often people use actual brand name for something that is not normally capitalized. So if you were talking about tissues, it would not be capitalized, or soda, depending on which English dialect you have, soda or pop or cola or Coke. Some people call it Coke instead of soda. That's Coca-Cola, that's a brand name, so that should be capitalized. Just like tissues, not capitalized, but Kleenex should be capitalized because that's the name of a brand instead of just the normal common noun. Okay, then titles of people are also here. So a professor is not capitalized. If you say, oh, I spoke to the professor and he or she said, that's just lowercase. But if you say Professor Romero, then you would make sure the P in professor is also capitalized, as well as the professor's last name, because it's preceding their name. Okay, and then there are common misuses of capital letters explained here as well. So D, E, and F, you guys should study at home by yourselves. If you have questions, you know what to do, you know how to ask me about it. And I would like to do exercise 14.11, if I can find that. Oh, I'm sorry, 33.1. I was reading the wrong section on my paper. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize this so you can see it all in one shot, and then you can press pause if you would like. So you want to capitalize the words that need to be capitalized, and then you want to substitute small letters or lowercase letters for unnecessary capitals. Use a dictionary if you're not sure, and if the capitalization in a sentence is already correct, then just mark it as correct. Okay, and there's the example. The first book on the reading list is Mark Twain's A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. So we see the corrected version has both Mark and Twain, his first name and last name, capitalized, and then each letter that needs to be capitalized in a book title, so everything but in, is capitalized here. It's just a little bit funny because I call myself the International Yankee and on YouTube, and Connecticut is my home state, and it is also the topic of one of my exercises in the grammar book, that exercise book that I wrote. So that's why I giggled there. Okay, so pause this and do numbers 1 through 10, and then in a few moments I will show you the answers. Okay guys, so I'm going to bring up the answer key. It will be here. Alright, so I'll zoom in for you. Revising capitals. So you can pause that and take a look, compare it to what you have. And then if you have questions, please do send those to me. Okay. So the last section that I want to look at is colloquial versus academic English. And I'm going to show that to you here. We're going to start in chapter 37. And we'll start on page 513 of your text. In the e-reader, it's on page 517. Wait for that to load. Okay, so 37D, use colloquial language only when appropriate. So it designates the words and expressions appropriate to everyday spoken language, such as chill out, go nuts, or get off on. When you write informally, colloquial language may be appropriate to achieve the casual, relaxed effect of conversation. But colloquial language generally is not exact enough for more formal college, public, and professional writing. In such writing, avoid any words and expressions labeled informal or colloquial in your dictionary. Take special care to avoid mixed diction, a combination of standard and colloquial words. So here's an example of mixed diction. According to a Native American myth, the great creator had a dog hanging around with him when he created the earth. So we need to revise that. You may find some of this in the summaries that you have done peer review on, or later the argumentative essays. According to a Native American myth, the great creator was accompanied by a dog when he created the earth. So, much better, right? Okay, so then now we will look at page 153 to 155 in your book. So that's for the hard copy of the book. And for us, we are going to page 157 in the e-reader. And this is looking then again at the differences between colloquial and academic English. Okay, so using academic language, chapter 6, unit 6E. American academic writing relies on a dialect called Standard American English. The dialect is also used in business, government, media, and other sites of social and economic power where people of diverse backgrounds must communicate with one another. It is standard not because it is better than other forms of English, but because it is accepted as the common language, much as the dollar bill is accepted as the common currency. In writing, Standard English varies a great deal from the formality of an academic research report to the more relaxed language of this handbook to informal emails between coworkers. Even in academic writing, Standard English allows much room for the writer's own tone and voice, as these passages on the same topic below show. So we can see here kind of a range of formal, more formal versus less formal. I'm just going to pause this for you guys. Okay. And British, there's standard British English as well, and then you also have Canadian English and whatnot. Just make sure they're all accepted here. All of the standard Englishes are accepted here at The Hague University. We don't enforce British English or American English or Canadian English or anything specific in those terms, because the academic formal style of each of those dialects are similar enough, and we don't have a preference. Even though we are European studies, we don't necessarily put a preference for British English, because we do recognize that English is a world language that is used in other continents as well, and we want you to write in the most the version that makes the most sense for you. You may have learned American English in school, you may have gone to an American school, for example, or an international school that made use of something other than British formal English, so you should use the one you feel comfortable with, and make sure that you stay consistent within your document to that one. Okay, and there are sections in the book that cover the differences. If you're interested in that, you can look at that. And we also have in, don't quote me, it's either, I believe it's the English writing skills. This course is appendix. I believe we have a section on the differences. If it's not in the appendix here, then go back to Introduction to English Writing. It's there then if it's not in this one. So this, we're not doing any exercises here. Oh, actually we are going to. I didn't plan to, but then I saw the exercise and thought it was good. But I just want to scroll through this for you guys, these different points, and you should do this reading on your own. For me to go through each section with you would be redundant. You should do the reading at home by yourself. I just want to scroll through it so that you kind of refresh your memory. And then I want to look here at exercise 6.1. I'm going to put it here. Using academic language. Revise the following paragraph to make the language more academic while keeping the factual information the same. So pause that, pause the video so you can look either at the screen at the paragraph or in your book and revise the language to make it more academic, and then I will pull up the sample answers for you. Okay guys, I'm going to pull up the sample answers again. Unfortunately, it is a split page. So I'll show you the first part. And then the second part. Nope. Up here. Okay, so compare your answers to those answers, and then let me know if you have questions. All right. So that is it for today for the content. Make sure that you review everything in the content folder, the study guide, and that you really do your reading. I will be available for the live stream. So if you have questions regarding this, you can, in the meantime, submit your work or ask your questions here below in the comments or in the discussion thread. I will be focusing primarily my time in the discussion thread on giving feedback for the summaries. But if you have simple questions, then you can ask them, and then when we do the live stream on Thursday, I will be more available to answer questions as well regarding the content. But please make sure that you do the reading and that you study. These 2 weeks are anyway primarily self-study, self-guided weeks in this course. So hopefully you won't have any trouble, and if you do, I'm here. You can come to the live stream or ask the questions in writing. So best of luck, and I hope to see you guys on Thursday, and take care, be well, be safe, and make sure to relax and rest up a bit as well. Okay, bye guys!